name's Eva and welcome to this channel. As you can tell, we are in a different location and there's a human here. So this is Kate Sloan. He's here today to talk about dominance and submission and kind of be like our intro to kink on this channel. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a sex writer and a journalist, and my blog is at girlyjuice.net, and I also co-host a weekly podcast for sex nerds called The Dildorks.
So I'm going to be asking some questions, and it's just going to be a great time. So the first question is kind of to like set the grounds, get some terms right. So can you explain the difference between like dominance and submission, BDSM, and kink?
Yeah, for sure. Kink is like a really broad category of things. It's just non-standard things that turn you on. So like you can have a feet kink, I have a bit of a winking kink, or you can be into things that are more traditionally associated with kink, like leather, dominance and submission, spanking, stuff like that. Within the category of kink, you have BDSM, which is a slightly smaller group of things. It's bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, and sadism and masochism. So you have dominance and submission in there, and then you also have the bondage discipline piece, and then the pain piece. Dominance and submission within BDSM is a specific type of kink where you're into consensual power exchange. So they're controlled by the other person, they can be told what to do, can feel owned by the other person, which can be just like the length of a sex session, or it can be their entire relationship.
That's such a good, concise answer. Kind of the idea that kink is super broad and there's so many things that we cannot talk about in this video. So the second question that I have, how does consent work differently in DS relationships and interactions?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that if you're watching a DS scene from the outside, it might look like there's not consent, which is why you have safe words and safe signals. So basically you decide on a word together that is going to mean, no, seriously, I want the scene to stop right now. So some people pick like unusual words. You want to pick like a weird word that won't come up organically in your scene. Mine is usually cinnamon. Sometimes people like to use red and yellow, which I like because sometimes you're like not quite at the point of wanting to safe word, but you want whatever's currently happening to like slow down or not happen quite so much.
Yeah.
So you could say yellow, and then when you actually do want it to stop, you say red.
I feel like the like red, yellow, like I guess like green too. I feel like that's pretty good for like vanilla interactions too. It can be kind of difficult to be like, can we slow down?
Yeah, and the other cool thing about that is that like you can say it if as a submissive those feelings come up, but then also the dominant can check in with you and be like, what color are you at right now? Because sometimes when you're in a scene, like especially for submissives, you can kind of lose your ability to like speak articulately a lot of the time. You go into what's called subspace, so you get a little bit hazy sometimes. It's hard to speak your mind, so if a dominant directly asks you what color are you, that's a little bit of an easier question to answer than like how are you feeling.
Because you're saying like looking from the outside, there's not as much like consent communication explicitly as there might be like a vanilla interaction. How does it decide what's gonna happen in like a scene?
Yeah, one thing I really like to recommend is a yes, no, maybe list, which is just a really basic, like you just make a list of sexual activities and you each go through it and you put it in 3 categories. So yes is like definitely interested in this, no is definitely not interested in this, and maybe is like only with these certain parameters, and then you can discuss the maybes more. My friend Bex, who you know, they have a yes, no, maybe list template on their website, and what I really like about that one that they did is they talk about not only the activities, but also the words you like and the feelings you like. For example, if I like being spanked, but I don't want to feel humiliated or objectified, I just want to feel punished and taken care of or whatever, like those are going to be 2 different types of spanking.
So I want to talk about your least favorite like, stereotype that exists about kink.
I'm thinking a lot about 50 Shades of Grey, but like there are other ones that are also bad. And the stereotype that comes out of these is often that the submissive is not empowered or that they're like damaged in some way, and that's why they want to do this. And it's so funny because like if you know actual kinksters, the submissive is really the one who's in charge. Like a real dominant who's consent conscious is going to focus a lot on like what does the submissive want and how can I give them what they want in the way that they want. I actually feel a lot more respected in my kink interactions than in my vanilla hookups sometimes, because I feel like kinky people are much more likely to ask you what you want and then give it to you. Whereas with vanilla sex, I feel like sometimes I'm too nervous to ask for what I want, or if I do, sometimes it's like ignored. Not to the point of like consent violations, but I feel like they just don't take it as seriously.
Maybe kink because you're a little bit more deliberate of like what you want out of that encounter. So people might have gotten to this point in the video where they're like, this sounds kind of fun. Maybe I would like to this. Do you have any tips for people like starting out?
Yeah, one thing I like to recommend is a really fun game where for a time-limited period, one partner is in charge. And of course, like, consent is still vital. It's kind of a fun game because, like, sometimes you might feel embarrassed about wanting to be a little more dominant in a scene, and this is kind of a construction that gives you permission to do that. There's stuff that's fun for introductory DS stuff is like mild pain play, so like spanking, slapping, hair pulling. It's really easy to do that if you use a 1 to 10 pain scales. Like if you're spanking someone, you're like, where were those hits on a scale of 1 to 10? And if they're like 3, then you know you have room to go up. But if you're hitting them what you think is lightly and they say that's a 7, then you're like, okay, maybe I need to dial it back. And then you can also play with like mild bondage, like you can like hold someone down by their wrists, or you can cuff them or whatever. Just make sure you're not leaving them cuffed for too long.
Speaking of safety, do you have any other tips for safety?
Yeah, different specific kink activities will have different safety considerations. So like spanking, for example, you have to know what areas are safe on the body to hit.
The YouTube channel Love Honey actually has like a really awesome video about that, so I will link that in the description.
If there's like a particular activity, you should research the safety of that.
Another question that came up a lot was about aftercare. So do you want to talk about how that works?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of people who've never done kink stuff before are a little bit confused by the idea of aftercare, because like vanilla sex, I personally don't tend to need aftercare for vanilla sex. Like I can like have sex, get up and go, and I'm fine. But kink sex can be a little bit more psychologically difficult. It can stir some shit up for you. So sometimes you need what's called aftercare, which is sort of a period of like decompressing and coming back to earth. People need different things from aftercare, but some common things are like cuddling, talking about what just happened, telling each other your favorite parts of what just happened. Usually you'll want to have some water and a snack.
All part of like safety, making sure that everybody has an awesome time. Sweet. So we talked about like kind of introductory stuff to do. Do you have any tips for like going about like introducing that to your partner?
Yeah, I mean, I think like small hints are good in both of those situations. So like if you've never talked about kink stuff with your partner at all, and you have no idea how they even feel about it, it might be a good idea to bring it up in like an indirect way. Like you could be like, oh, I saw this article, or like I saw this movie that had this thing in it. What do you think about that? You can be like, I had this dream, and you didn't even have the dream. Like you don't have to have had actually
No, honestly, this is like my favorite tactic. I recommend it to people all the time. Also, you can be like, I watched this video, this one, and then send it to them.
Another cool thing is if you know that they're down, there's a website called Kink Academy, which is full of like hundreds of videos about like any kink you can possibly imagine, and they're really fun to watch together. There's this great website called BDSMtest.org, which tells you like your scores on various like DS and kink related measures, and you can use that as like a jumping off point for conversations.
Okay,
so I'm a single person right now and like haven't had a super lot of success with like mainstream dating sites like OkCupid and Tinder for finding kinksters. I'm told that they do exist there. All I do is like I have the word kinkster or kinky like in my profile pretty prominently, so people who are into that will see that and will know what that means, and people who are scared of that will be steered away from that. I have 2 questions I like to ask a dom to try to figure out if he's the kind of dom I want to play with. One of them is, how do you ensure ongoing consent during a scene? So that's just a really good, like if he doesn't know how to answer that, that's a good indication that I shouldn't sleep with him. And then the second one is, has anyone ever safe worded with you, and what happened and why? Because oftentimes doms who are not that experienced or who want to seem like good doms will say, oh no one's ever safe worded with me, why would they need to safe word? But I think most people who've been in kink for a while have had at least one safe word come up, and will have a story to tell about that. You can get a sense of like how they respond to that kind of thing.
And that's the end of all of my questions for Kate and all of your questions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Kate, do you want to remind people of all the places they can find you?
Yeah, you can read my sex blog at girlyjuice.net, and I also have a portfolio of other writing at katewritesaboutssex.com. And my podcast is called The Dildorks, and you can find us at thedildorks.com, or you can search us on whatever app you get your podcast on.
So like this video if you like it, subscribe if you aren't already. Have a lovely day!
Sometimes people use like the name of a person who like really takes you out of the mood. Like for example, Donald Trump. You could do that.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah,
It's all over.
It kills your boner immediately.